Greetings, YouTube. We demand that women live in fear and behave impeccably to avoid asking for it. In an extract from her book, Asking for It, The Alarming Rise of Rape Culture and What We Can Do About It, author Kate Harding explains how women order their lives around the fear of rape and of being blamed for not preventing it. Now, the phrase rape culture is a hot-button issue in today's world. Another way of looking at it is rape support culture. And what do I mean by that? I mean that it's legitimate rape when some stranger hops out of a bush with a knife in his hand. That's legitimate rape, particularly if the woman in question is chaste, never had a boyfriend, never had sex. But if a woman has had sex and is raped by an associate or a partner, well then, that's just bad sex. That's trivial. The same event can be viewed incredibly differently depending on how the person looking at it wants to frame it inside their own head. They don't seem to take into account how the person that survived the event sees it, because that's not as important to rape support culture. Rape support culture is always out there with advice for women. I've lost track of how many men are willing to come forward with 101 different justifications for how women should avoid being raped. I've done this. Okay? Me, right here. Because I was an idiot. Alright? Because I thought that telling a woman, well, if you do this, 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 and this, you'll be safe. And it's bullshit. And every time a guy does that, every time a guy comes forward with a long list of suggestions for avoiding being raped, ask them, do you also tell your male friends not to make rape jokes? Not to catcall, not to harass, not to follow women, not to get mad if they don't give them your phone number, or give their phone number to you in a bar, or just tell them, don't rape. But of course not. If you suggest those things, well, you're painting all men with a broad brush, and yet you've got advice for every single woman in the world on how to avoid rape. Seems that your brush only goes in one direction. Rape culture is police that downplay rape. Or, in the rare cases that we actually get police that listen and they collect a rape kit, an invasive process, which isn't necessarily all that much fun to experience in and of itself, the rape kits can then sit on shelves for sometimes decades and do nothing. Only later, when there's a hubbub and a big media splash because the rape kits haven't been tested, and then they finally get around to testing them, discover that there were serial rapists out there in action. Rapists that were allowed to rape again and again and again because the rape kits weren't checked. And you're going to say, well, it costs money to do rape kits. And you're right, it does cost money to do rape kits. Well, say, let's stop arresting pot users and start processing the rape kits. Also, there's more than a little smidge of racism involved in this whole process, because a lot of the rape kits that aren't being tested are rape kits that belong to women of color. What a shock. Rape support culture is when we tell women how they have to dress in public. That if they dress this way, right here, in this little tiny narrow gap, if they're just inside that right there, they're safe. But of course they aren't. Because how you're dressed has nothing to do with it. If we tell them, don't do this and don't do that, you'll be fine. And it isn't. And every time I bring up the concept of rape or rape culture, I get inundated with people talking about drunk sex. People really want to justify having sex with drunk people. A whole lot of guys want to make sure they continue to have access to inebriated women so that they can get their nuts off. That they want to make sure that they have access to sex. There's a whole lot of men out there that seem that they feel that it is their privilege, their right to have sex. Well, I bought her dinner. I took her to a concert. She was drunk last week and I didn't have sex with her. So I'm a good guy. No. That's your metric for good guy. Your metric needs to be recalculated, folks. If someone's drunk, don't have sex with them. The same criteria for sex should be applied as we have for driving. If they can't drive, they can't give consent. Oh yes, and let's talk about consent. Rape support culture fights against the concept of consent all the time. Because everybody seems to want to make an excuse for rapists. And when rapists hear this, people badgering survivors, people questioning their clothing, their behavior, where they were, how if they were alone, were they inebriated, all these things, they know that they've got a support structure around them that's going to help ensure they don't get caught. It's like being told, well, you know, here's an entire ghillie suit to wear, and we're going to let you walk through a forest. If you could do that, you're not going to be seen. And that's what rape support culture does. It allows the rapists to camouflage themselves amongst all their eager supporters. The people, mostly men, who want to question if a woman was drinking, or was her skirt too short, or has she had more than one sex partner in her entire life, or any of the other 1,000,001 things that they do when it comes to treating the survivor of a rape more harshly than the person that they have accused. And of course, whenever I talk about rape, someone's going to bring up the fact that men get raped. Well, yes, men in prison get raped more because, well, it's an all-male environment, and we have fostered a cultural meme that being raped is part of your punishment. So that's a bit of toxic thinking that is its entirely own place. But these are all outgrowths of toxic masculinity. The concept that men have access to sex. The concept that it's just a good old boys club, guys talking about things, you know, that rape joke, that's no big deal. Bullshit. It's camouflage for the rapist. Because if they tell a rape joke and someone laughs at it, they know that this person is there to help me. And the next rape joke will be a little harsher. And before you know it, they know exactly who in a crowd they can depend to cover them. Oh, Bob? Oh, yeah, Bob was out back. Yeah, he was too wasted to do anything. It's a nice bit of camo when Bob was raping someone at that moment. And we need to keep talking about this. Rape support culture, rape culture, depends how you want to look at it. We need to continue talking about this. We need to make sure that we raise people who are aware of this, men and women, and let them know that they cannot tolerate any kind of this harassment of women. I heard someone wolf whistle recently. I called them on it. Now, this person was wolf whistling at someone he knew. I still called them on it because they were at work. And I said, that behavior right there, that can get you a sexual harassment charge. I want you to understand that. So maybe you don't want to do that. Because that's my job. Because I want to dismantle this process. I want to tear the rape support culture apart. And I can do my small piece by speaking out about it, here and in real life. We can't tolerate these things. We can't make excuses, and we need to treat everyone with respect. I know this is going to come as a shock to some people. For all the silent men out there, the majority that are harmless, that aren't telling other men, you shouldn't do these things. You're helping to support their behavior. You're helping to mask their behavior. You're helping to camouflage their behavior. We can stop this. We can reduce this into the aberration it should be, as opposed to the dirt common event it is every single day. So, what can we do constructively to tear down rape support culture? Let's talk about that. And let's try to stay on point. I know it's hard.